TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Talk about there's so much talent from '84 to '88. You had Tully, Wyndham, Magnum, Nikita, Cornette, Midnight. Everybody was there. I mean, what was it like working with some of those guys I just mentioned?
Well, I went in the first day when Crockett brought me in there, right? And I wanted $3,000 instead of 25 to book, because I said I want $500 more than George Scott, because George Scott was the booker for Crockett when he was really doing business.
Right.
And they thought he was a genius, and he wasn't a genius. Wahoo McDaniel, Johnny Valentine were the geniuses. They thought of their own matches. They thought of their own finishes. They thought of their own angles. He got all the credit.
Right.
So I said, I don't want to make as much money as that, as he did. So Jimmy, that was one of the perks that I said, even if it's $1 more, and you pay George Scott, because George Scott was not God as a booker. George Scott was not shit as a booker. Everything that as he booked was done by the guys. The guys, the Steamboats, the Pipers, and all the guys that were there. I walked in to the warehouse for a meeting. Crockett introduced me as his new booker, new head of wrestling operations. The word booker was thrown out the window. And booker, to me, I hate the word booker.
Right.
You're creative. You're executive producer. You're creative person. So I went to my office. James J. Dillon, who was my right hand in Florida, my first assistant booker ever with Jerry Briscoe. James J. Dillon. They started coming in. The Pipers, the Steamboats. They all left. Because I said in the meeting, 7 o'clock, there's no card playing. The bullshit stops here. I'm here to make you guys a living, make me a lot of money, make the company even more money. It stops here. You're on time. Same rules we always had. As I had grown up, and I just wanted to respect it. If you don't like a finish, there's no gray area. If it's mine, there's no talking about it. The door is there. Here they come. Steamboat, Piper. They lined up. They left me. There we go now. Just the guys I brought from Florida. Now trying to run a new empire that's just come off of Starcade with Black Bart and Ron Bass. Thank God for them two guys. Dick Slater. They pitched in. You know what I mean?
Right.
They took a shot. They ran. They worked the angles. They worked their ass off. They made some money, but they stood by me. And them guys left. And I never would keep a guy against his will or say, I want to go to New York. I just signed with New York. I would give him a hug. Like I said, I heard you heard me tell a story. And I'd say, go on, good luck. You want me to do the job tonight for the guy? I said, no. Go on. It's no use of prolonging. So, Starcade got their booking. That talent was, at the time, the best talent Crockett had there. Had the best talent anywhere in the world. It was unreal. And my closeness with Vince Sr. And then with Junior came into play during that era too. And I knew Junior because of a restaurant meeting with me and Barnett in New York City. I knew the night that he bought Georgia. I knew the night that Barnett started to work for him.
Right.
I was there in the restaurant the night all that shit took place. I knew it was coming. So I was trying to prepare the Crockett promotion for it. So,
right. Well, now we're in the period of NWA, and there's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
I guess you came in '84 full time. You did the Flair match at Starcade. Was it?
Starcade was, let me tell you how that got going. The country was in need to go forward. That's one thing that I've been able to do is to, even though as I got older, was change with the time. If I needed Willie Nelson on a concert or Limp Bizkit, I believe that's the right name for them guys on a concert, I would change. I wasn't just going to say, I'm a Willie fan. I want him on concerts all the way through 2000. You know what I mean? So I was able to change. Jim Crockett, I was with Eddie in Florida. Jim Barnett had booked me out, kind of like they booked a champion at the time. And Barnett was my booker, but I worked Florida and I booked Florida. When I would get tired, Eddie would give me 2 or 3 months. Jim would book me out and I would go all over the country. Me and Andre traveled because TBS was so hot. I became his first golden boy in 1974, 76 off of that TV. I could go anywhere in the country and make money. So they would book me out, but Jim Crockett was having a little hard time with the promotion. Ole Anderson was the booker. Dory Jr. was the booker. was a small company run by a family like the McMahons. Okay. And in the mid 80s, it was as powerful as I said, as McMahon. There was nobody. That's a lost era. When you see these, I'll talk about this because I really get pissed off about these A&E specials and stuff. But going back to that Starcade, okay? Jim Crockett said, I know you're good at this. You did the Tampa, Last Tango in Tampa, of naming shows and making them kind of bigger than they are, because that's really what I want to do, executive produce, make shows special and big, at the time. And can you do something, And I worked for Eddie at the time, and I wouldn't leave him. I would go out, but I had never ventured out for a long period of time out of Florida. And I said, okay, I'll think about it. And me and Barry Windham, who was understudy of mine also, were on the way to Jacksonville, which is a 200-mile trip. And I was letting him drive the truck, and I was jotting down names. I was trying to think of that November, Thanksgiving, autumn. One of the names I came up with was Autumn Bomb. And I said, man, Barry said, I don't think it would be right, for the Autumn Bomb, because if it didn't draw, then, boy,
Right.
But he wanted something that would last forever, like a movie, like Gone with the Wind. On the way back, after a couple beers, I kept singing, they're always talking about matches, centuries, immaculate decades, and all these things, I said, here we are in the 80s. I said, I'm going to actually renamed a decade. I actually made up a new terminology, Rhodism, if you will, and it was Starcade. I said, how about the match of the Starcade? To where his promo, Jimmy's promo, we had the match of the decade, the match of the centuries. And now as we move on into our industry, the match, Starcade.
Right.
I wanted to be like when WrestleMania then came to where Starcade was something that was the granddaddy of them all, on pay-per-view or whatever. And at that time, I said, yeah, I like that. So I created a scenario with a attorney's office to where we had all the, I don't know if you have that tape.
I have all this.
To where I made the show mean something. Like there was all these promoters from all over the world.
Right.
And he got the bid and he unveiled Starcade. And it was huge. It was never before done. It was a movie. I made a movie.
Right.
I wasn't starring in it. And that goes back to contradict all these guys that said he starred in everything he did. It's not true. I made that movie. I started in it later. But in making that movie, I went to great pains behind the scenes to produce it and direct it, and to I've seen a new life for me, you know what I mean? To where Florida at the time, to where you said nowadays they give a guy $150,000, $200,000 to make one shot a year and do absolutely jack shit, That in Florida I was making $120,000, $150,000. And I was on top of the world. I was a king. I was God there. Governors would come to me to get elected. And they would. And that's egotistically true.
Right.
So Starcade then became the event for Jim Crockett. And he had me come that night. And flew from Florida to Eddie, could I go to Starcade? You always ask permission to leave the territory, to go, to give notice respectfully. And because I'd created it, he let me go. I didn't really care about the matches or what they had lined up. But I put on a 3-piece suit and I went to Greensboro and I seen the most unbelievable thing unfold. The greatest dog collar match of this day with Piper and Greg Valentine. To this day, nothing compared with it. And I seen this thing unfold. I said, the whole new world's getting ready to open up here. It's getting ready to go balls out. Because even after that, when we would run Starcade on Thanksgiving night,
right,
he would put cards in the seats, selling, this is how sharp we were at that time, selling the event for next year, where you could write and get your tickets for the Southeast Conference Championship game next year. I remember the second Starcade we did, the very next day in the office, we had already sold $100,000 worth of tickets for next November. And that was unheard of back then.
That was 84, 85?
Yeah, that was unheard of. 83 was the first one.
Right,
that was the, and I went back home, and about a week later, I got a check for $15,000. That's what I got for creating Starcade that we still watch today.
Wow.
And I didn't work for him, but that was the most money I had made probably at one time. And then he flew to Tampa. And he says, I want you to come, book my territory. Steamboat and all them guys. I want you to create 4 events a year. I want you to name them. I'll give you $2,500 to book. I'll give you a percentage of 7 towns. This was unheard of back then. There's no attorneys. It's no, you know what I mean? It's me and him.
Right.
Over Steak and L.
Right.
And I'll give you so much a percentage when you wrestle. I said, I couldn't in my mind figure out how much. I said, Jesus, this is unreal. There's a lot of money here. And without thinking a lot about it, I had already set in my mind the video for the Boogeyman Jam, which was not one of the 4 events, but it was one in between, and I wanted to try it back in Greensboro. Just with the video, coming off the video, the angle he had with the Assassins and Paul Jones, Jimmy Valiant, I wanted to say, I want to see if a video can drive an event. Not the match, not so much the angle coming in and cutting Jimmy's hair. Okay. But if the video could sell the tickets once, on Monday, once it played on Saturday, on Tuesday, ticket sales, you knew if you had them by the ass, you knew of that movie. It's like now, Blair Witch doing so much money the first day. You know what I mean? You know right then if you got them.
Right.
Okay. So I had video too. So that was one. Okay. Jim Crockett Cup was the other creation. My favorite one of all was Starcade, of course, with the Great American Bash, which we still do today.
Right.
So I have movies still running today. If I would have copyrighted them back then, if I would have thought back then, I mean, I'd still be sitting here in this, farmhouse like deal out here in the country a little bit, but it would be phenomenal, Right. And then every event up until the Bischoff area I named and created that way. And a lot of people don't know that, but that's the way it was done. But Starcade was, it was a big event. So I said, yeah, I will. I said, okay. I called Eddie shortly after that. Eddie killed himself for not the reasons that I left, but that was the first time I had ever left him, or left Florida to venture out on my own. And I guess Mercedes, there were more big cars in the parking lot of Jim Crockett's promotion than Vince McMahon had ever seen in one time. Everybody had a Porsche. Everybody had Mercedes. I mean, we were rolling in money. We had 2 planes. We had a jet. This is Charlotte, North Carolina, man. We had dreams. We wasn't scared. We went into Capitol Center July the 4th when Vince gave us a building to teach us a lesson. Turned away 5,000 people, had over 19,000 in the Kevin Sullivan's creation, the Tower of Doom, But when you talk about creations, I mean, when you talk about one of my favorite creations of all was the War Games. That cage, that idea. I mean, I sat in the car with Jimmy. I did a lot of stuff driving down the road, like people wrote music. And I created this thing, man, and it came to life. And you see it today, and you're proud. But everybody don't say, how did that get there? How'd the bull rope how did you ever create a fucking bull rope match? So they were movies to me. They were creating movies. It wasn't the guys so much as what I wanted to put on the TV for you to absorb. So we were ahead of our time. We were on a roll. We were hot. And we were drawing money everywhere. We were making money. We were partying. We were flying. People were taking drugs and dope, and I mean, it was just, the Robert Earl King song, The Road Goes On Forever and the Party Never Ends.
Right.
Yeah, that was us, but it ended. It ended for us. And then then the times went on downslide.
How did the concept of the Bunkhouse Stampede come about?
Boy, I got fucking heat for that, man. And I got heat with Lex Luger and Flair and Sting and these guys. Is that the bull rope was a unique thing that I created because of the Indian strap. For me, and created that. That was the first extreme match, real new extreme match besides the War Games and everything. And on the War Games, it's my deal, you know. I think that I think a group like ECW, first ever, Sell It to Paulie, War Games, anything goes, would be phenomenal.
All
you
right.
know, I just take a meager fee for that. But the Bunkhouse Stampede, we had cage matches, right? And our cage match was different than Vince's. Vince's, you put a cage in to get out. I didn't ever understand that concept. You get out the door, you go over the top, you win the match.
Right.
Ours was to keep the horsemen out, to keep the evil guys out, to keep the people out from getting in and finally finishing this thing with you and so. You know, let's finish this match. And something always happened in some cases. But a lot of finishes were done in the cage. So the concept of the two, and me being the cowboy from Texas and the bull of the woods, the baddest, you know, in the deal, the concept came for the Bunkhouse Stampede because we needed, and now we had started, instead of doing 4 pay-per-views at 3, we were doing 5, we were doing 6. So as and naming the different things, I wanted different concepts and different things to happen, lethal lottery, and you know there were things that I had to create. And the Stampede was not a throwaway pay-per-view, but it was a pay-per-view that was at a time of year to where it always didn't do as well as the other ones, but we had to do it and we could make a little money off of it. And it was over the top, come as you are, bunkhouse rules, because back then you always had the street fights. But in our company, it was bunkhouse street fights, called the cowboy, that era. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't like the New Jersey, the Chicago. What the hell is the difference between the Chicago, New Jersey, and the Texas street fight? You know? So mine was, the concept was, in the old days, we did, here we come again. I said, video precede what I want to do. Bunkhouse, the Old West,
Right.
We showed all the deal, you know what I mean? It's like Midnight Rider. We showed, the video preceded this thing. And so we told the story of the old days, the bunkhouse and all that stuff. So it just came about like that. And I had won the Stampede because I was a creator. I was the bull of the woods. I created this fucking thing. There was no other cowboys in this goddamn thing. You know what I mean? What, did Luger want to be a fucking cowboy? I mean, you know what I mean? So that was my match, you know? And I won it again the second year in the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island. I remember getting on the plane and them questioning me about that. When did you put yourself over on this thing? And I kind of laughed to myself, you know what I mean? And it was just we don't even do it no more, but it was just an era that thing did some business, you know, and that's how it came about. And I was the king of it. It's my match. Nobody else is going to win that fucking match with me.
All right.
TitleMatchNetwork.com